All right. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to American Advocates. This is, I believe, episode 24. I went through and counted the amount of times I've been going live, so I'm on a over 3 week streak now of going live, taking a few days off here and there. It's actually getting kind of tough to keep doing this every night because we're in a very slow news cycle right now. I see we have Glenn in the chat already. This title, greater than everything. I agree. This is an important conversation to have, and I've mentioned it in passing on prior episodes. The news cycle being so slow, I decided tonight's going to be the night where I just do a full live stream about it because there's really not much else to talk about. I'm waiting to see what's going to happen over in Iran and see just how costly of a new Middle East war we're going to get involved with. And, they're in peace talks, kind of diplomacy phase right now. Ali Khamenei, of course, doesn't want to give up his ballistic missiles because, in honesty, to be fair, what country would? But that's what they're being asked, and they're saying no. So I'm waiting for all the real news to hit. You can only talk about Epstein so much. Iran and Israel and America right now is kind of boiling over, but nothing's happening just yet. Ukraine, Zelensky, he made the news. I don't want to talk about that little midget fuckface, though, honestly. I'm so sick of Ukraine. I just think we should abandon them at this point. So what I do want to talk about is Trump and AI, and I want to talk about the future of America and Americans with AI involved because it's looking pretty bleak, and I'm an optimist in nature, and I'm still saying that. I think we can overcome this. I think Americans are waking up to it pretty quickly, but the problem is Trump is gung-ho on it. Trump needs to get the messaging, and I don't think he's going to. And worse yet, I think there's actually too much money involved and too much of a notion beating China involved to really stop AI from developing in the way that it's been developing. So the purpose of AI. First, hang on. Let me look at these chats that are already here. Let's fucking go. Hell yeah. The stream is going to be legendary. I can feel it. We'll see. And how almost always things are overshot, and thus a year later will be the pullback. The housing market needs attention more than AI to help Gen Z and millennials. Yeah, I'm going to be honest with you, though. The reason why I'm doing this right now is because I genuinely believe that our biggest threat actually right now, I just spent all day pretty much researching AI, watching videos on AI, listening to firsthand accounts of AI. I think there's like this hierarchy of issues plaguing America right now. I actually am borderline ready to put AI at the top of that list simply because of the speed at which it's developing and progressing, the speed of its advancement. I think it's more dangerous to us than Dearborn, Michigan, with the 52% Muslim population. I think it's more dangerous to us than all of the big money in our politics that's corrupting our politicians. I actually think it's more pertinent to us than Epstein Island and all of the revelations that we've been learning from Epstein Island and how it's global elites all wrapped up in this weird sicko kind of pedophilia ring. I genuinely think something needs to be done about AI soon. And every model I've been looking at really does predict that humanity, really the way of life we're living now, in accordance to the way of life we're living now, humanity only has, it seems like, single digit years left before everything changes drastically. And by that I mean far under 10 years total. The purpose of AI is to help humanity, not replace it. And it's like this folly kind of situation that I think America's finding itself in now, where we're potentially at this risk of AI replacing people. Not here just to help us. I love using Grok. Sometimes I fuck with ChatGPT, though it's way more liberal for my liking. I use AI pretty much every day now, but it's just like an advanced form of Google the way I use it. I use it to scour the internet at lightning quick speeds and to, provide me with the information that I really want. And also to talk with me about it. It's easier for me to listen than it is for me to read. I'm busy. I like to hear. So the fact that AI can talk now is like amazing to me. But that's really in the utmost capacity that I want to see AI being around for in America. I don't like this idea of Americans having their jobs replaced. I don't think anybody does. But Trump's really not thinking this one through. And it is really, honestly, logically stupid, like I said, for AI to be developed for the point of helping us and then ultimately replacing us. We simply cannot allow that. And we're really, according to the models I looked at, we're really only about 5 to 7 years away from about 50% of the total jobs here in America being replaced by AI. There's just no way around it, especially when you take into account all of the nonsense jobs that exist. It's like it almost makes me smile to think that all of those stupid bimbos that work in human resources and HR offices, it almost makes me smile to think that they're going to be replaced because at least for a little bit, for a couple months to a couple years, the workplace will be more free from the bitchy undertones of women working in HR offices, as AI will likely replace a lot of those jobs. I've already discussed in the past how I've experienced AI replacing jobs, certain call centers that I've had to call into for problems throughout my day as a business owner, as an independent contractor. I previously have been greeted over the past 7 years by a human, oftentimes a human I can barely understand. They have a thick Indian accent. Now I'm greeted by an AI that speaks crystal clear English. And so in some regards, I actually prefer the AI. But in my mind, I understand, even in that moment when it's like, this is nice, I can understand every word finally, I still realize it's replaced a human being. And fundamentally, that disturbs my soul massively. On top of that, if it weren't for the fact that it was replacing an Indian who held that job, I'd be even more outraged because it should be Americans holding these jobs to begin with. If I'm calling out of America to a place where a customer service number, I should be greeted by somebody who is clearly an American anyway. Regardless, though, AI is taking these jobs now. And the scary thing is, in some ways, I can acknowledge the fact that it's actually better in regards to my what am I looking for here? My experience with it. When I go through the experience of talking with the AI, I genuinely like it. But we have to be at a point where I think we have to be willing to set that aside and just accept humans are more valuable than AI. We cannot allow AI to replace us. Hey, Keystone Liberty, welcome, man. So the bottom line is Trump needs to regulate it. Because the other model I'm looking at is not just 5 to 7 years away from about 50% of our jobs being taken by AI and replacing humans, but we're likely also, by my estimate, 12 to 20 years away from AI taking upwards of 90% of jobs. Because don't forget, robots are being built. AI is building robots. And just a few episodes ago, somebody in my chat was discussing, I thought they were kidding, genuinely, because we were discussing some of the trade jobs out there that would be a safer bet for men to get into. And I still stand by that. A lot of trade jobs, I think, will outlast a lot of this stuff, or last a lot longer, I should say, like a plumber. But one of the chatters even said in my chat, and I laughed, he said, I don't know, those AI drywallers are pretty frightening. I thought he was being sarcastic, so I laughed and kind of poked fun at the idea of AI putting up drywall. And then I thought about it 2 days later for some reason, so I Googled it. It's real. There are robots now. It looks like somebody leading a small squadron of battle droids from Star Wars into a house, and the robots, they hang the drywall, and they do it precisely with precision and efficiency. So it's honestly insane. Oh, it's raining, Keystone. You can probably hear it. Yeah, spring is in the air. It's raining. But so the robots are hanging the drywall. The chatter was not lying. I thought he was being sarcastic. It is frightening too. And the worst part about it is there's no way to justify it other than to appeal to humanity. And these corporations, we are in, and I hate to say this, I am not a socialist or a communist, but certain elements of AI are pointing me in the obvious direction of the fact that we're not only in a crony capitalist society, but we have reached hyper-capitalism. So we do not want socialism or communism, absolutely not. But the fact of the matter is, there may need to be some parts, some aspects of our society going forward in the future because of how radical AI is changing, how the radical difference AI is making is going to force us all to the conclusion, I think, where we need to embrace, I hate to say this, we need to embrace National Socialism, at least when it comes to AI. We need to regulate AI. It is not a typical GOP opinion to have. Usually it's about deregulating and cutting red tape and allowing businesses to expand and grow. And I'm all for that, except for when we're talking about replacing people at mass. This will destroy our society and ultimately our American way of life. America is not supposed to be a country where the middle class is gone. And that's what will happen if AI is not regulated now. And so these corporations, the problem is the corporate greed. It's such a liberal, it makes me want to puke to have to talk this way. But the corporate greed is real. And we're seeing it, and you have to understand that there's no incentive for corporations to, let's say it's a company that deals with putting up drywall and construction. Well, if these robots can hang drywall and they do it precisely and efficiently and 90% correct, where they don't make a lot of mistakes, where a human has to come in to fix it, which it'll get to that point, and they don't ever need a break. They don't need to clock out. They can stay on the site day and night, working at twice the rate without taking a lunch, without taking a paid lunch, without taking vacations. No expectation of overtime pay, holiday pay, increase in wage, a raise, a promotion. All of that goes away. The robot doesn't care. It does only what it's programmed to do. And that's where I was so grateful that chatter pointed out the AI drywaller, because it's a real thing and it's frightening. And what we're seeing with this Trump administration, unfortunately, and I've been ragging on Trump so much, in this case, I don't want it to come across as someone who's outraged at Trump, because I understand why Trump is doing it in this case. I'm outraged at how Trump's handled the Epstein files, for instance. In this case, this is a tricky situation. So this is not me with TDS saying Trump's an idiot, blah, blah, blah. Trump just doesn't know, and Trump is also focused on money, and Trump is also focused on China and national security. I'm going to cover all of those elements on this episode. Trump has signed executive orders like Executive Order 14179. This has removed barriers to AI development. He did this upon taking office. In fact, last January, within days of being sworn in, he signed this executive order. It was a top priority for him. He's also created the Winning the Race America's AI Action Plan last July. And under that action plan, he's also signed other executive orders, like Executive Order 14141. And this executive order has allowed the federal permits to be granted to these AI companies to be sped up. He wants that sped up. And it's for data centers on public lands. And truthfully, that leads me into one of the main talking points of today: the harmful effects of data centers. These data centers are what's required for AI to work at a massive scale, and these data centers they're atrocious. When you learn just the kind of effect that these data centers have on these local cities and towns where they're being built, it will make you understand even more so how important it is to resist the mass development of AI. These data centers, they require billions of gallons of water to flow, just to power them. And then on top of it, when they're powered, they are taking up so much power on the grid that it's already happening in cities where they're being built, like in Texas. Brownouts, they call them. Blackouts, straight up blackouts as well. And worse, these citizens. You would think that these companies would have to be the ones to absorb the increased cost of electricity for that town where they've built their data center. No, the citizens, the serfdom citizens, like with everything else in this country, are the ones who are expected to absorb the bill and pay the increased cost of the electricity bills rising up. Americans who are living around where data centers have been built are reporting on average a 15 to 20% increase in their electricity bills. This oftentimes equates to them paying $20 to $30 more per month so far. And we're at the beginning stages of this. We're going to need to ramp up our electrical grid. We're going to need to increase the amount of data centers that are being built. This is going to have a drastic effect on everyone in America. And Trump has essentially cut the red tape when it comes to the permits being granted to these companies to build these data centers. So Trump, in a lot of ways, is accelerating the AI. And he's doing it in the name of progress, which is why I'm not harping on him the same way I harp on him for his botched release of the Epstein files, because that is an intentional, active cover-up, in my opinion. This data center stuff, it's easy for people to be fooled by this. It's easy for people to look at this and call it progress, technological advancement, the AI industrial revolution. And in some ways, it can be a great thing for the future of America. But if it's not regulated properly, it's going to destroy us. Literally destroy us. Which is why at the beginning of the show, I equated it to the biggest possible threat we're very likely facing right now. Very, in my opinion, bigger than anything else going on, in all honesty. The Epstein stuff, and Iran and Israel and Iraq and Dearborn, Michigan, and the Muslims, and big money in our politics and all that jazz. All important stuff. no deep state arrest, this corrupt DOJ, all important stuff to talk about. The cost of living crisis, important. Immigration, perhaps the second most important, right? But the most important thing is AI right now. I'm telling you that right now, and my eyes are being more and more open to that over time as I continue to study what's going on here. Where was I here? Yes. And Americans know this. So in the red states, they actually did a family studies poll in a lot of red states across America. And 80% of voters in the red states are in favor of at least, and that equates to 4 out of 5. It was over 6,000 total people polled, and it was many conservative voters, probably liberals in there too. Because at the end of the day, humanity, I think, hopefully understands this existential threat we're facing with AI. And so, 4 out of 5, or 80% of voters in a lot of the red states where this poll was conducted, approve of AI being regulated in some form. And again, this is important to point out because, like I stated just a few minutes ago here, this is not the normal talking point for a right-wing channel to make or for conservatives to embrace. Overall, when it comes to corporations, we do want businesses to do well in our society. And so red tape being cut is more the approach when it comes to the GOP party. And a lot of times, rightfully so. But at the end of the day, we are in that crony capitalist society, that hyper-capitalist society. Corporate greed has gone too far, and AI is going to be the magnifier that honestly can destroy our way of life if we're not careful. And so with Americans voting in 80% favor of AI being regulated in some form, I think it's obvious what needs to happen here. Unfortunately, it's just not obvious to anybody with the power to do anything to stop it, at least not at the federal level. Now, and it's even more ironic, too. I wrote this down. This is actually what's ironic to me. I recognize it's not a pro-free market, pro-capitalist, pro-GOP Republican talking point to say AI needs to be regulated. But what's ironic here is, I've pointed this out before too, boomers are always the ones, for instance, that talk about how great capitalism is. But you understand that boomers have benefited the most from social entitlements via, semi-socialist programs. I've discussed that before. Social Security and Medicare, with the poor people, Medicaid, for instance, all of that jazz. And we can debate all day whether or not those programs should exist, but the bottom line is they exist, and in my opinion, they're at least semi-socialist. And those exist, and people don't complain about them, at least not older people who are benefiting from them. So it goes to show you, when it comes to my point here of AI needing to be regulated, like, that should be the very least of what we do here in this country. That should be like the thing that nobody argues with. That should be the exception to the rule, where we just go, yes, for the benefit of American society, regulate AI. Now, Trump also has signed an executive order that preempts state laws. And so what he's done is, because these red states have had these voters in 80% favor of regulating AI in some form, and a lot of these states recognize that this is voter poison, right? A lot of MAGA is being stirred up over AI development right now. So a lot of MAGA is resisting AI development and progression. Trump has signed an executive order, though, that basically threatens to cut federal funding from states if they if they go too hard on overregulation for AI. And this is because some governors, like DeSantis actually in Florida, for instance, he actually has been pushing back, and he's been trying to push for more regulations of AI, and for good reason. And so Trump is actually trying to fight a lot of these governors. Trump just signed this back in December, too. So this is a very recent one. And this is him pushing back against some of the red conservative governors out there who recognize the dangers of building all these data centers in their towns and the effects that it's having on the day-to-day citizen who's now paying $20 to $30 and sometimes even more than $30 per month increase in electricity bills because of data centers. Not to mention the fact that, like I said, the AI is taking all of our jobs away. So Trump is pushing back, and you have people running like James Fishback, who I've talked about, who's also pledging to take the governorship position in Florida and continue to fight back on the data centers, which is a good thing. Now, the candidate in Florida, Byron Donalds, who's vying to replace DeSantis, is pro data centers. The last time I checked, so it's going to be interesting to see how that plays out for Florida. And there's other states where it's playing out like this as well. Keystone Liberty says people need to understand the difference between the Trump, the deal maker, and Trump who's making civil compromises that Trump claims are deals that are anything but deals. Yeah, pretty much. You have to understand with Trump something, one of Trump's mottos when it comes to deal making, when it comes to how he's running things, you can see you can see how it plays out a lot of times with Trump. He's the kind of guy that wrote the rule of never admit defeat, always claim victory. And so that's the thing. If you're constantly hinging on what Trump says to formulate your opinions, you're going to think that it's been a total win so far, and it hasn't been. Just the facts. Dial up 5583 says, "Yay, we get AI so it can tell us the sky is red." Yeah, well, you know what? That's the crazy thing about AI too, is it's not being regulated, and it's going to take us to places we don't want to go. So, um, I don't think it should be destroyed. I'd like AI. I use it in my day-to-day life, but we need to cap it deliberately, so domestically so as well. I want to get on to the next talking point here about AI that I wrote down. This I found to be horrifying and fascinating at the same time. In correlation with the fact that Trump calls his plan basically centered around AI the build baby build, to kind of correlate with his drill baby drill plan for oil. Trump says it's a issue of national security, and this is truly the part where AI gets tricky, because he's not completely wrong. And this is why I'm not harping on Trump this time, and why I deliberately stated this is not some like Trump is a moron and Trump is destroying us on purpose or any of that jazz. I do genuinely believe that Trump is doing this in the name of progress and national security, and I believe obviously there's kick-ups involved because he's friends with Peter Thiel. I see Dial-Up mentioning Palantir down there. I'm going to actually get to that in a second. So I think there's a icing on the cake element here for Trump as well when it comes to money. But I do believe he has our best interests when it comes to AI. This is one of those areas where I won't just dismantle and like tear into him over, because it is tricky. And here's why it's tricky. First and foremost, we have military AI that no country is going to agree to deliberately regulate, right? It's bad enough trying to get Iran to agree to not enrich their uranium and pursue nuclear power, right? It's already hard enough to get Ukraine to agree to not become part of NATO, where they can then be protected by NATO and once again maybe get their hands on nuclear power again over time. So we're already having problems with that with some of these countries, right? North Korea's been a sleazy country when it comes to nuclear power. Scouts honor, fingers crossed behind their back. China would be the last country that would openly agree to regulate military AI. They would openly agree to do it, I think, as sort of a gotcha. But behind the scenes, they'd keep going, and then they would laugh at the fact if we agreed to that on the same premises that we were playing by those rules. And that's how China gets ahead. So from a military standpoint, I think unfortunately, it is an AI race. I think we're left with no real choice but to continue to develop military AI, which is sad. It's sad for the future. Not that war's ever a great thing, but the fact of the matter is a war that's going to be waged with a lot of AI drones is just so ridiculous to me. It's absolutely brutal, especially when you've seen the kill cam footage on a lot of these social media sites of the drones killing soldiers over in Russia or Ukraine. It's like, man, it's weird to say this, but it's so impersonal that it doesn't seem right. Also, on top of that, from a domestic standpoint, I am in favor of AI being regulated from a domestic standpoint overall. But the bottom line is, even then, that is in essence sort of our way of we might be cutting ourselves a little too short, unfortunately, if we do that. Hello, Scruffy. We might be cutting ourselves just a little short if we regulate domestic AI as well, because China, once again, doesn't care about their people, right? China uses their people however they please. If they decide that there's too many people, they put a one-child limit on families, right? Then they decide, oh, the birth rate's too low, start having more kids. When Trump imposed the tariffs, we saw firsthand how China decided to handle that. They were willing to sacrifice their economy and their people just to stand up to Trump. They didn't care. And so they don't care, I think, ultimately, the leaders of China. And Chinese people have this, like, whether it's phony or not, they have this more extreme nationalism to them where they'll do anything for their country. It's kind of how they're educated and raised. Even if they don't fully believe it, they're worried also about the consequences of going against the grain on that. And so China doesn't care. China will keep developing their domestic AI and their military AI. And if we regulate our domestic AI too much, we fall behind that still affects us on a global scale, on a geopolitical scale, because our GDP then, if China goes hard on AI and it winds up being as profitable as everybody thinks it will be, at least in the short and midterm, well, then China's GDP actually will be where they claim that it's at, and ours might fail to keep up pace, which means that our economy might start lagging behind China's then. And that is a problem. And so this is why it's so tricky. And I put so much thought into this. But ultimately, I've concluded, at least so far, that it is still worth regulating AI on a domestic front because we must prioritize the health, well-being, and wealth of our own American people. It's not just America first. I am America first. I'm a Christian nationalist, America first kind of conservative, but it can't just be America first at the end of the day. I love when Trump does something to benefit America. I do. But it also has to be Americans first. And AI is quickly becoming anything. It's putting Americans last. And it's putting Americans last faster than H-1B visas are, faster than a colony of Muslims in Dearborn, Michigan is, faster than any funding we're sending over to Ukraine and Israel. It truly is a problem, I think. So, and we're already seeing these problems, by the way. I have numbers here that are startling when it comes to the effect of AI domestically. And I've covered this before on prior episodes. I've mentioned it. I haven't really deep dived into it though. But corporations are using AI now, and it's really harming people when it comes to the jobs market. I'm going to get to that in 1 second. I'll take a look at the chats here. I see Keystone Liberty says, I want to know why all the drone sightings in New Jersey all of a sudden stopped right after Trump was elected. Yeah, Trump says he knows why, but he won't say. Which means it has something to do with the military. So that's probably why. And dial up. I didn't fully read that chat, but it says, "Yay, we get Palantir, so our kids can't run an illegal lawn care business." Yeah, exactly. Yep. Hey, I'm gonna get to that in a second too. Dial up. We're gonna cover Palantir in a second because the sad thing is, it's funny to say that now, and that'll be low on the priority list for Palantir. But sadly, even that might be an actual problem. So I'll cover Palantir in 1 second. But what I want to get to is the problems that we're seeing with AI domestically here. The average under 40 American now has to apply to 1,200 jobs, 1,200 jobs to get one job interview. And that's not even a guarantee. The job interview is just an interview. It's not even a guarantee of getting the job. 1,200 jobs. Now, there's 365 days in a year. You cannot possibly apply to 1,200 jobs in 1 day or even in 1 week, not even using AI. And so really, when you do the math on that, that's the equivalent of applying to over 3 jobs per day for an entire year to get one job interview. That is atrocious. And this is what young people are going through. And I've talked about this generation gap before, and I think there's nothing more evident when it comes to the generation gap than the young people's opinions on foreign affairs and how our administration currently is handling that. And there's also nothing more evident in our generation gap that we're seeing right now than when it comes to AI, the understanding of AI, etc. And both of these are a nightmare right now. In all honesty, they're both terrible, and they are political poison. The way that this administration is going about foreign affairs and AI development is political poison. It won't be the star of the show for midterms, right? The star of the show for midterms, unfortunately, is going to be Epstein because Trump botched the release of the files big time, and all he had to do was put them out, just unredacted, just throw them out there to the public. He couldn't do it. And so that's going to be one of the main talking points without a doubt, as well as ICE, as well as immigration and mass deportations. And, then on the internet, you're going to have the people that are talking about foreign affairs. That'll matter to some degree too. AI, I don't think will be discussed all that much, but it should be. And that's why I'm discussing it right now. I think there's hope for humanity, but I think this topic is still under way too many people's radar to really really understand the gravity of the situation here when it comes to AI development. So under 40 Americans now have to apply to 1,200 jobs to get one job interview. On top of that, it's because the corporations are using the AI. They're using AI now. You apply to a Walmart, your application can only be done online, and it's it's ran through an AI filter that searches for very distinct keywords. And this is the hack, right? This is the hack that people have found out. So now they're using that to their advantage, right? This is how it goes, by the way, with technology. One side uses it, another side figures it out, uses it back. The other side figures out they're doing that, they use it back, and so on and so forth. And so, out of frustration, youth now are using AI to create resumes and job applications to then send to the AI at the corporation that's taking the job application, aka Walmart, Target, etc. And this is where we're at in society right now. It's actually mind-boggling. When you really think about what's going on right now, we have people using AI to apply to a job that uses AI to filter the job application. So essentially, it's two AIs talking to each other with the middlemen being the corporation that's hiring and the desperate person looking for a job. And if you can't serenade the corporation's AI, if you can't use the right words, if you can't appeal to the AI, well, you don't get the job. You don't even get notified that your application was disqualified. You get nothing. You get just silence. You're ghosted. And that's why it's taking people on average 1,200 job applications to get one interview. And worse yet, these corporations now have figured out that young people like Gen Z, millennials, have figured this out. So the corporations have figured out that young people are using AI to create job applications. And they're using AI to generate the right keywords that forces the corporation's AI that filters the job applications to admit the application as a good, worthy application for an interview, right? What do these corporations do in response? Now, these corporations set up another AI or use their same AI to filter the job applications that are being turned in for AI usage. And so you have a company, I'm not saying Walmart does this, but let's use Walmart as an example. You have a company like Walmart. They use AI to filter their job application. So young people say, oh, well, if I'm not going to apply just to have my application denied immediately and I'm not even notified, so I will use AI to generate the right keywords on my application to get my application successfully admitted for an interview. Well, Walmart, hypothetically Walmart, looks at that and goes, oh, we don't want that. That's cheating the system. So now we're going to set our AI to detect if you used AI on your job application. And if you did, you're disqualified. Only the corporations get to use AI for job applications to filter through them. Apparently, this is like high school or something. Apparently, you can't use AI to gain an advantage. Only the corporations can use it and hang it over your head against you. And that's where we're at as well. And that's what's even more depressing about this. So once people learn how to use AI in their favor, the corporations go, not so fast. You're not supposed to use AI to create a job application. Only we can use it to determine whether your application's good or not. It's so messed up. We are in such weird times right now. And on top of that, I wanted to get into the fact that many of these jobs, by the way, many of these job offerings that you see on the internet are fake. They're not even real. And there's two reasons why that is. First and foremost, a lot of these corporations are utilizing the demand out there on the jobs market, right? Gen Z can't find work. Millennials can't find work. Young people can't find jobs. Boomers say they're lazy, but we all know why. I'm explaining to you why it's happening right now. And so these corporations are putting up phony job listings, and they're doing so to make it look good for their company. They want you to think that they're hiring when they're not. They want you to think their company's doing so well that they constantly need new positions when they don't. They're not expanding. They just keep the job application, the job listing up for people to apply to. So people get their hopes up for this and then they hear nothing back. And you don't know why you didn't hear anything back. Did the AI filter out your application because you didn't get 10 out of 10 keywords correctly that they're filtering for? Or is the job opening a fake one to begin with, and you just wasted your time applying for a job that doesn't actually exist? Worse yet, it gets even worse than that. Some of these aren't even real jobs or even real corporations. They're data phishing now. Because on a job application, what do you put down? Your full name, all of your sensitive information, your phone number, your email, your address. So you have to apply now to 1,200 young Americans have to apply to circle back to 1,200 jobs just to get one interview. It is almost impossible to apply to that many jobs at that level of a volume without hitting fake corporation jobs that don't exist, without hitting data miners that are looking for your information. All of a sudden now you're getting junk mail, spam texts, spam emails flooded to you because you applied to a job earnestly that never existed. And this is where AI is taking us. This is the inconvenient part of AI. The scary part, of course, is that AI is going to replace a lot of these jobs, and they won't even be listed at all soon because it'll be either an AI chatbot or a full-blown humanoid AI robot that could be replacing you very, very soon. And so with what we're seeing, the effects of this, the average age now of an American being hired is now at age 42. It's like a decimal. It's almost 43. That is so unacceptable and harmful to our society. I think anybody with common sense would look at that and determine, the average age of an American being hired, if everything was booming and going very well, would that not be age 22 to 26? Am I wildly off base for assuming that? I don't know. But it's like, that's like fresh out of college age. You got a degree. This is very boomer thinking of me, of course, 70s, 80s, decade level thinking. But age 22 to 26 is when I would assume people would be being hired at the highest level. They're young, they're ambitious, they're new to the world, could be their first job. Like that's the world to me that makes sense. Instead, we're dealing with a world where the average age of a person being hired is age 43. It's mind-blowing. Dial-Up says Trump isn't what we voted for in 2016, but what do we do? Support Bolshevists? No. Honestly, hey, 2009 Lifeguard, what's up? What we honestly do, Dial-Up, is... All right, here's the answer. I've actually mentioned this before. It's not real. I hate to say it in context of talking about AI, like I said, because I'm really not ragging on Trump for this one the same way that I do on his economic policy overall, or his Epstein files handling, or his backing down on immigration, etc. But overall, as a whole, what we do, we let the Republicans lose in the midterms. You have to create the pain because they're very comfortable right now. They assume you're going to vote for them because you're scared of Democrats winning. I say let them win because we're not getting anything of what we were promised anyway. Right? Like what's going to happen if Democrats win the midterms? Well, the Trump administration is not going to be able to get anything done, right? But if you look at what's going on right now, it's only really a half-baked effort that they're putting forth anyway. What are they actually getting done right now to begin with? Like, they start something, they don't finish. Greg Bovino pulled out of Minnesota, right? Tom Homan takes his place for PR coverage. Now ICE agents are being withdrawn from the state, pretty much at large, right? So mass deportations, they've pretty much come to an end. What's going on with our cost of living? Well, for the everyday American, it's not gotten better. I'm looking at the price of Easter candy right now, and for a 10-ounce bag of chocolates, my local grocery stores wants to charge me $6. I mean, I can remember a time, and I hate to sound like a boomer, because it's always boomers that talk like this. I can remember a time where that bag of chocolate was like $2.50, $3. I remember thinking was a bit pricey. It's $6. That hasn't gotten better, by the way. And so I'm looking at it as a whole, and I'm saying, and the botched release of the Epstein files and all of that jazz. I'm looking at it as a whole picture right now, and I'm saying, Trump started off strong his first 2 months. I loved what he was doing back then. And then it just died off entirely. No Doge, There's still actually a transgender issue in this country to some degree. There's still men playing in women's sports even. I like that he came out against that stuff right away, but it's like, even that, we really haven't gotten that up to the full extent. Even stuff he promised in his first term, you really got to look back on and hold him accountable for. Where's our border wall? We were supposed to have that. Never happened. And so I say let the Republicans lose in the midterms because they clearly don't care about their voter base, us. And I'm not going to vote for them. I'm not going to vote for them until I see candidates that I like. And that's why I reference James Fishback so much. Or even overseas. I'll know we have a good president running when I see somebody speaking like Rupert Lowe from the Restore Britain party? There's Reform Britain and Restore Britain. I think Restore Britain is Nigel Farage. Reform Britain, I think, is what it is. Either way, Rupert Lowe. Rupert Lowe speaks the way I want a future president in this country to speak. And the difference is he speaks with conviction and he comes at you with an ideology. That's the difference between somebody like Rupert Lowe and Trump. Trump's a populist. Trump says the right things. Trump even has good instincts. But Trump is only a populist. And that's why we see Trump chickening out on stuff and backing down so quickly on stuff, because the second it hurts his approval rating, the second he gets overwhelmingly bad press on something, the second that he feels like it's going in the wrong direction, he pulls back. You need someone with ideology. You need someone with convictions, religion. You need someone to religiously want to put America and God first. And you need somebody who wants to religiously save and restore America. It's not going to be Trump for that reason. I think Trump does want to do those things, but he doesn't have the conviction needed to stick to it. Because at the end of the day, it is true. Mass deportations would hurt us in the short term. There are too many farmers that depend on illegal immigrants to pick their crops, and they pay these immigrants $3 an hour. So if you get rid of those, the farmers now have to either pay for fancy hardware to gather the crops, machinery, which is a fortune, or they have to hire Americans and actually pay them a proper living wage, which is more than double what they pay the illegal immigrants. That would cost us more money in the short and midterm. It is true. But we need someone who's going to go through with it anyway. Because at the end of the day, you have to recognize the long-term effects of illegal immigration, which is, of course, it's replacing the Americans that live here. And that's just one example. But that's truly how I feel about it, in all honesty. So to answer your question, that's what you do about it. You have to let these Republicans lose because they're not serving our interests anyway. And on top of it, they really don't care about us anymore. Hate to break it to you. But I believe maybe Thomas Massie, 50 to 75% cares about us. And I believe a guy like James Fishback genuinely wants to change Florida for the better. And I hope more people rise up and run for governor like Fishback. And I hope there's more Massies even. I find Massie a little bit annoying, but I do hope for more people like him. But overall, you look at this Republican Party and you understand the big money involved in politics is affecting them as well. All right, let's see. 6 people, slow news day. Yeah, it's very, very slow news. Very slow news day. We're going through a drought in politics right now. So be sure to like the stream because, yes, it's very low viewership day today. Not that I care. I love doing this regardless. But be sure to like the stream because it does help the stream and the algorithm. Also subscribe to American Advocates if you haven't already. And on top of it, yeah, I think maybe I can go a little conspiratorial route here just for pure cope on the matter and say I'm talking about regulating AI. So of course this stream's being suppressed, right? But I think that's probably cope. Sublime in all says we are doomed already, man. Don't you see it? No, I don't see it. I don't believe in taking the doomer pill. A lot of topics I discuss will make people want to take the doomer pill, but we're not doomed yet. There is hope for us. We can't ever embrace that or accept defeat. That's cowardice. We can always fight, and we should always fight, and we need to be doing more, not less. Because honestly, with your thoughts, what do we do then if we're doomed? Just stay inside and wait for death? That's not what I'm going to do. Both sides of politics are in the Epstein files. Wake up, dude. You're sleeping. I'm literally not sleeping. You're a new viewer here, clearly, if you think that that's my viewpoint on the Epstein files. You need to stop making assumptions because they make an ass out of you. You need to go and watch some of my content so you don't look like a fucking jackass in my chat. Homie Cyborg Zombie says Trump should be arrested. Disagree. Although, because of how complicit he's been in the cover-up of the files, I'm not sure how torn up I'd be about that anymore these days. It may be strategically good to lose in the midterm, says I know. It's a scary thought, though, Lifeguard. It's a scary thought to go that route, right? Like, it's kind of an accelerationist mindset, and I'm wary of that. Because as a kid, I mentioned nerdy Star Wars yesterday. I'm going to do it again. As a kid, I despised Count Dooku, right? I despised him. I was like, man, what kind of a gutless coward joins the bad guys just because of the perceived difference in power level, right? As a kid, it bothered me. Now I've gotten older, and now I see the corruption on the Republican side of the aisle, and I understand. But I still think overall you don't want to go too far on the accelerationist path either, because at the end of the day, what happened with Dooku in the movie? Well, he got betrayed because he joined evil, and there's no alliances amongst the wicked. There's no alliances among thieves and the wicked, so you got to be careful. I'm not trying to ally with the Democrats, right? I'm not trying to help Democrats. I think Democrats are overall wicked people and a wicked party. They want the destruction of our country. They hate people like me. They hate people like you, right? And so we don't want them to win in the long run. But a temporary setback for Republicans to slap them awake could be a wonderful thing, I think. So it's a risk. We're rolling the dice with this kind of ideology, with this kind of strategy, right? We are rolling the dice here, and it makes me nervous. It makes me nervous to even say it, but I do believe that it's probably the best course of action because it'll also cleanse out a lot of these Republicans that don't belong in these positions, right? So, new subscriber, your stream is awesome, says MMMM. I appreciate that. Thank you so much. Homo Cyborg Zombie says cope. Thomas Massey is genuine. He is genuine. I do believe that. And I hated him this time last year, or around March when I created this channel. I was like, man, he's a contrarian. He just lives to disagree with the Republicans. He thinks it makes him look so smart. Because back when he was doing that stuff, I understood why he was doing it. It was because of the access pork that was being added into some of these bills, like the Big Beautiful Bill, for instance. But back then, I was still in the mindset of, well, we just need to push it, get it out there, get the good stuff out there, right? But now it's like after all of those moments where Trump has really gone off course, now I like Massey. I'm like, yes, please continue dissenting from this Trump administration right now. This Trump administration needs to be put back on course, and people like Massey have turned out to be the ones advocating for that. So I actually do like Massey more than ever now. I agree. AI needs heavy regulation. Absolutely. Hoyterarchy. I hope I'm pronouncing that name right. Yeah, that's the whole point here. I'm going to get back on track with that actually too, because I want to cover that just a little bit more here. Let me finish looking at the comments though. Trump and Bondi 2028. That's good rage bait. I give you I give you props. Especially putting Bondi's name in there. That's hilarious. 2009 Lifeguard says, temporary setback is where I was going because they will go nuts. They will. Well, they'll have to reevaluate is really my thought process here. They'll have to reevaluate, and it'll apply pressure, right? If not only do they lose in midterms, but Republican voter turnout is at an all-time low, well, that's when they really get scared, right? So, and that's what we need. Everything they've ever dreamed of doing, they won't be able to help themselves, and Trump will still hopefully be in. Yeah, I think Trump will be impeached if the midterms are lost to Democrats, but and I think there's not a 0% chance Trump is removed from office. We could actually live to see such times. But I think there's more than a 50% chance Trump stays president regardless. It would be something else to see a sitting president removed. You're homeless, dude. They got you right where they want you. I'm homeless to avoid the AI. The AI's watching me always. I gotta live in my car. I can't live in my house anymore, man. The AI's in my television. All right, back on point. I wanted to discuss finally when it comes to this Peter Thiel and Palantir, and this is the other the Lifeguard. This is the other problem that I have with AI. It's actually a huge problem, and it's also not being discussed enough. Peter Thiel, a massive Republican donor. He's donated tons of money to the GOP. He's one of Trump's buddies. Well, Peter Thiel owns a company called Palantir Technologies. And this company, he named it after watching Lord of the Rings and feeling inspired by Palantir. Palantir was the sort of crystal magical ball that Saruman had in the movie that he was using to be able to communicate with the Eye of Sauron. That eye, of course, was able to see all things, right? Or see everything in front of it, basically. It was the Eye of Sauron. It was always aware of the presence of the ring, and the Palantir ball was how the Eye of Sauron could see stretched out across the lands. And so Peter Thiel was he named his company after that. He's backed by the CIA. And on top of that, this company Palantir, he's a billionaire backed by the CIA. This company has been created to process massive amounts of information on us about Americans at a rapid pace. I wrote this down here actually. They use our social media, our health records, our location data, our public records, and more, all to form profiles on us essentially. And use all that information to generate profiles on us and determine a risk assessment on us, aka future opponents, deterrers, enemies of the state, etc. All of that. Palantir, because of the developments in AI, because of the increase in surveillance that we have, right? There's more and more public cameras popping up. Certain cities are embracing cameras. If you go to a downtown area where the crime is higher, there's cameras on the street corners now, right? And that's not going to get better. They're not going to take those cameras down, or they're not going to put more cameras up encroaching on the suburbs, right? It's going to happen. And we got to try to stop this too. But the inevitability of it is there's going to be cameras more and more popping up everywhere. They're outside of businesses in the suburbs even, right? And so what AI is going to do is it's going to use your internet presence, your health record, your public record, possible criminal record if you have one, anything, anything else added on, state records, all of that. It's going to compile that. And it's going to use that to create a surveillance state. They're going to generate these records. They're going to profile people in categories of risk assessment, threat level assessments. And this will be based off of possible future threats. So they're not even basing it off of, well, he has a criminal record, so he's a threat. They're basing it off of social media posts you've made. They're going to base it off of what you say or do on the internet, right? Like my profile, this channel will be included in my profile. And if I speak too radically, they're going to elevate my threat level, possibly. They're going to consider me more of a radical. And this will happen to a lot of Americans. All of it's going to be compiled, logged, kept a record of, and this is what Palantir's mission is. It's all about data, it's all about surveillance, it's all about, profiling people. And that's just one more reason why AI needs to be regulated. It's the surveillance state element that is perhaps the scariest part. But just underneath that, of course, is the fact that AI is going to threaten us with our jobs, right? And I'm telling you right now, I think 5 to 7 years, give it 5 to 7 years, and we could be at a risk of losing 50% of all the jobs in this country. Americans will lose 50% of jobs to AI. I think in 12 to 20 years, that number could be 90%. And, the sad reality of that is when that happens, if we lose 50% even, it's devastating. America as we know it is probably done. If we lose 90%, we're at peasants and lords territory at that point. You're either rich and own businesses and companies when that happens, or you're poor. And if you're poor when that happens, I still say if, we got to fight this. But if you're poor when that happens, just consider it basically you're poor for the rest of your life, because universal basic income will enter at that point. And that will be socialism that quickly delves into communism. And that'll be it. The middle class will be gone forever. And 90 to 95, maybe even more percent of Americans will not have a job at all. They'll just be receiving money from the government to live. And I think, honestly, what will happen is you will truly be used as the next era level of cattle. You'll be given an AI bot, since you couldn't be bothered to figure out how to use it on your own, essentially, at that point in time. You'll be given an AI bot to manage, and that bot will be doing work, and you'll be overseeing that while you get your universal basic income. It'll be menial tasks. It'll be boring stuff. It'll be stuff that the government needs. But essentially, it'll all be just government jobs, and then the few business owners that were already successful and will be insulated from it to some degree because of their wealth already. And that's where we're heading, and we do not want that. That's honestly the worst possible outcome for America. Because when universal basic income comes, $2,000 a month, $2,500 a month, maybe $3,000 a month if we're lucky, there are going to be so many idiots out there that love it at first. They're going to say, oh, wow, this is wonderful. I lost my job, but I'm getting $3,000 a month from the government. I get to stay home now and smoke weed and play video games. And I order a pizza every night now, and it's amazing. And it's going to feel great for about 3 to 6 months, maybe a year. And then all of a sudden, the effect that it has on our economy, when everyone's getting $3,000, all of a sudden $3,000 isn't worth $3,000 anymore. Prices will shoot up. The government is using our money to pay us at that point, because the government doesn't generate revenue, really. It takes revenue from us to redisperse it or spend it. And so all of a sudden, our dollar value is going to go down, our inflation will go up, prices will go up. $3,000 is going to equate to people needing to do the 1900s Germany tactic of bringing a wheelbarrow full of coins to a bakery to buy a loaf of bread. And that's where this country's heading if universal basic income hits our markets as a result of AI not being regulated and taking all of our American jobs away from Americans. And that's why Trump needs to regulate AI. better learn how to raise chickens. That's actually a big goal of mine. Once my company's doing well, my business is doing well, because I plan on being on the other end of this. Trust me. And once it's doing well, my business partners and I have actually discussed that we're gonna try and own farmland. We're gonna pull a Thanos. We're gonna conquer the business world, and then we're gonna go farm. Well, in all honesty, though, like, what else are you? Now I'm depressed again, says Gary the Snail. I saw you the other night, Gary. You were like, hey, man, is there anything positive to talk about? I'm leaving. I want to hear good news. Sorry, Gary. Like, I appreciate your viewership. I really do. I hope you continue to tune in. But, like, and I want to talk about good stuff. Like, maybe we disagree on this even, but when Trump was doing his Venezuela shit, I was going off on this channel. I loved it. So I do praise Trump when credit's due. But right now, Gary, there's so much, and I don't know, again, I've talked about age gap, Gary. I don't know how old you are, but I'm just going to be honest with you. If you're a boomer or an Xer, it feels like a different world to you than it does to us, which is probably why you're coming in here feeling sad all the time. But there's a lot to discuss, man. And I do it from the lens of criticizing Trump, but not hating him. I don't hate Trump. I want Trump to do well. I want any president to do well. I want America to thrive. And that's really why I do it. I want to open people's eyes to what's actually happening so that voices can exponentially be heard at a louder level, right? If more people get out there and start having these conversations, even on a day-to-day basis, if more people wind up getting out there and talking like this and getting the word out here about this stuff, then perhaps we can stop this, or perhaps something can change. Or perhaps people who have heard this messaging, like James Fishback in Florida, who wants to fight the building of data centers in Florida, will rise up and run for office, because that's really, really, at the end of the day, what we need. We just need a better caliber of politician in this country. Better move out of the city, says Dial-Up. Yeah. It takes less than a year's salary of a burger flipper to get out of the rat race. Yeah, I mean, you got to be smart with your money, right? So you're not even completely wrong about that. Like, the problem is most people don't understand money, right? And I say this all the time. I don't even like calling it money that much anymore. I call it currency, because I think currency is the more appropriate word. Currency, indicating the fact, like, a river's current. And what is a river? A river is a body of water always in motion. Money should always be in motion. When money sits in a stagnant pool, just like when water sits in a stagnant pool, it gets disgusting. It gets filled with bacteria and all this crap in it. Money, similarly, should always be moving. Never make money and put it in just a bank for savings. You may have to do that temporarily to be able to save a large enough amount to do something and make a good investment with it. But you should never be sitting on a large amount of money, especially. You should save up until you get 10 to 20,000, and then when you have that amount, you can really start breaking out of that rat race. You're not wrong. But most people do not fundamentally understand that. And worse yet, I'll be fair to a lot of Americans, because I'm not trying to sound like some hardened, I'm a guy, I'm just getting started on my business. I just think I understand money better, and I think my stock investments in the past have proven that. As well as the fact of starting the business that I'm in, because I have a good insight on stuff. But, and I was telling people about silver in September, because I can see where money's going. I was telling people about gold a year and a half ago, right? Like, I have text messages with my dad to prove it, where I'm like, Dad, invest in silver. It's September. Trust me. It's hitting $100 an ounce. Invest in silver, And so it's like, people who don't listen to me, they can kick themselves. So I have always had a good sense of that, but you got to try and figure out where money is going. And it can be as simple as going to the grocery store and starting to change your thought process on money and currency, and ask yourself, why did I buy this product from this company? What did they do to get me to buy this? Why did I decide to move my money to their company in exchange for their product? You got to ask questions like that. Like, that's actually important. So people just don't understand it, though, and they make thoughtless purchases, and they make gratuitous purchases, and it's all about short-term stuff, right? Like, poor people make money just so that they can pay their bills and continue living. Middle-class people make more money than poor people, and they do so that they can pay their bills on time, and so that they can take out loans on their good credit to buy stuff they can't afford to impress people who don't care about them. So even middle-class people don't have a great understanding of money. Wealthy people have a good understanding of money. Wealthy people look at money trails, currency trails. They say, This is a world event. This is what's causing it. This is where I need to put my money investment wise to make more money. They also look at money as the ultimate source of freeing up their time. And I'm not in that position right now, but hiring an employee, for instance, etc. Free up your time to do more important tasks or to make more smart investments and do more work to make more money. So there is a big difference for sure. And people do need to try to get it on. I advocate for that as much as possible. People really, really need to take AI seriously and need to start thinking about their money, getting their money levels up, building up their wealth, etc. Because we could be in for either a renaissance period in the 2030s, which I'm very optimistic for, and I think it's possible, or we could be in for dark ages if AI takes over everything. So that's just where we're at. We really aren't fully starved out yet, but these alarmists are necessary. Yes. Thank you. I appreciate that too. I'm trying to be an alarmist. Yes. Because dystopia is possible and maybe only a generation away. I agree. I think very likely we could experience it in our generation and suffer from it, let alone Gen Alpha or the generation after them. Right. So I agree with that. I had an epic lint collection day at the 3 laundromats in town today. Wow. Wonderful. That's amazing. Good for you. That's inspiring. All right, guys, that's going to wrap up the stream for today. Appreciate everybody who tuned in. Be sure to like the stream if you haven't already. And if you wanted me to see a chat that I missed, you can leave it in the form of a comment when this post as a video after the fact. But as always, I appreciate everybody who tuned in today. Glory to America. God bless the USA. God bless you. Don't give up hope. We can save this nation. We absolutely can save this country. Don't take the doomer pill. Do not take it. Excellent job. Thank you, 2009 Lifeguard. I appreciate you. God, I'll be back tomorrow. Maybe some exciting news will happen tomorrow. Trump's going to hit the State of the Union address soon, so at least that'll be exciting. But it is truly so dead in the news cycle right now. It won't be like that forever, though. Midterms are on the way, and things are going to heat up. So there will be exciting news soon, but it's been a drought the past couple of days. So all right, guys, take care. Bye, Keystone Liberty. See you later, Double M. Appreciate the new subscription from you. God bless everyone. Love you all. Take care.